Welcome to another episode of The Catholic Novel. Today we're going to talk about John Hassler's terrific novel, Simon's Night. I think I probably got interested in this novel because Simon Shea, the main character, is roughly a contemporary of mine. And in the novel, he was a teacher, a professor of English at a college, and he's retired. Maybe he retired too early, but he's gone into a place called the Norman House. It's named after Hattie Norman, who owns the house, and she gives rooms to six people. And he definitely entered the Norman House too early because there's no intellectual stimulation at all. Somehow Simon thought this is the normal way. At a certain point in your life, you did these things. So even for an intelligent person, he made some really poor decisions. He becomes aware of that through a young doctor who has entered the town, where she interviews him. She's going to examine as she interviews him. She sort of hints, and she says, isn't this must be a very difficult place to live in. And as the plot develops, of course, she becomes his friend, and she's living with a boyfriend. So Simon is a devout Catholic. His wife walked out on him about 33 years prior to the start of the novel. By the way, the novel takes place in 1 week, but Hassler is really good at flashbacks. So he fills out the plot by going back, but actually the actual time of the novel is 7 days. So his life has left him, and he's been celibate for 33 years, except for 1 week when he has an affair with a former student of his. I want to read a page in the novel in which he has a discussion with the doctor's boyfriend, and that Simon Shea has not taken up with another woman. The boyfriend finds absolutely incredible. The church has made up this rule. And why would you obey that? I don't think anybody my age would obey it. So Simon's having this conversation with the doctor's boyfriend. This is the boyfriend speaking. Old people, maybe. I don't know anybody my age that's going to live the single life just because the church says you can't have a second woman. In this day and age, you'd have to be a fanatic to believe that. Really, Mr. Shea, don't you think it was old-fashioned of you to deny yourself the pleasure of another woman all these years? The pleasure of having somebody around instead of living like a hermit? No, another woman did bring me, the turmoil of a troubled conscience. You can learn to live with a troubled conscience. In fact, if you ignore your conscience long enough, it will disappear. I've learned that much. Not mine. I have a very durable conscience. It's 4 parts steel and 3 parts stone. A very great blessing it's been. Of course, depending on your viewpoint. Of all my faculties, my memory, my will, my appetite, my reason, it's my conscience that dominates. My conscience is a bully. That must be hell. It has its compensation. You have a sense of living your life within a prescribed set of rules. Your life has direction, a destiny, an eternity. And of course, you're seldom troubled by doubt or indecision where morality is concerned. You're driven to respond in a certain way. You might say you're bullied. Sounds like you're a victim of your conscience, not your own man. I should say servant rather than victim. I think that's a great dialogue. He's got a totally Catholic conscience, and he's not complaining. He's not saying, "Well, my life is wasted." No, he says that his conscience actually provided him with the ability to live as a celibate, except for that one affair he had for that 1 week. So he has no regrets. Now, as the novel develops, Simon's wife returns to him. And toward the end of the novel, they seem to be falling in love again. So they're going to get back together again, and he gets out of the Norman house pretty quickly, or at least very decisively. It really was kind of destroying him. Now, my experience is this. A large number of my contemporaries have retired. And I find that people who don't like what they do, especially people who hate their jobs, cannot wait for retirement. But even those people have to prepare for retirement. It's not easy, to be very, very busy and then to suddenly have a kind of a vacuum in your life. Other people who love what they're doing, I have to confess I do love what I'm doing, okay? Don't look forward to retirement. They may be very busy, they may even be very tired, but they find their lives very fulfilled. For example, recently I was talking to a teacher, a lawyer who teaches at St. John's University. He is absolutely crazy about his job. the idea of retiring would never even enter his mind, and he is awfully good at it. I would say exceptionally good at it. So I think retirement is an interesting topic. Now, there's a scene in the novel when, once again, it's a flashback, Simon goes to confession. And he confesses that he's he tells the priest that he's married, and he talks about this adultery that he committed. Now, the priest is a young priest. He's probably just ordained. So he's probably about 26 years of age, and Simon is at a retirement age. And yet the young priest, the responses he gives to Simon and the advice he gives to Simon sound like they came right out of a textbook. But what is rather amusing is this 26-year-old keeps referring to Simon as my son. Now, there's nothing, sacrilegious about this. This humor is not vicious at all. It's not making fun of confession. It's very gentle, and it's very human, and it's amusing, but also it's inspiring. So I just want to read part of the give and take between the young priest and Simon, okay? So he's mentioned that he's committed adultery. The priest was a boy fresh from the seminary. The priest says, "Are you contrite, my son?" The voice was squeaky. "I am, Father." "Are you married?" "I am, Father." "And do you resolve never to commit this sin again?" "I do so resolve." "Let me warn you, my son, that this is no slight matter. The flesh has its enticements. As you go along through life, you will find this a recurring temptation, and yet you must always remain faithful to your own dear wife. It is she who provides you with your home and happiness, and your proper place is at her side. If you find your carnal and illicit desires difficult to overcome, you need only ask help in prayer, and you will be granted the power of heavenly aid." Yes, Father. "And now let me say a word about your partner in adultery. Her welfare, too, must be considered. If your adulterous affair were allowed to continue, the two of you might begin to feel a strong attraction to each other. Spare her that, my son. Life is complex. Don't lead her on. If you do, your affair will end, as end it must, in tears and bitterness." "I know, Father." "You say you know, but I wonder if you do. Let me warn you, my son. Life is not simple." "No, indeed. Life is complex." "Exactly." Then the priest says, "For your penance, you recite the rosary before the altar of Mary, Queen of Virgins. And at the end, I usually would add a little prayer for good weather on Sunday. We're having our summer bazaar. It will run from 2:30 till 6. Perhaps you can come. I absolve you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost." I don't think it's blasphemous. I don't think it's sacrilegious. I think it's very, very amusing. I can remember being 26 years of age. I can remember the first time I heard confessions, okay? And I remember the whole experience, the first couple of months I was a priest. So the priest's comments sound like they were taken right out of a textbook. Now, after he gives absolution, this is what Hassler writes. Simon says, "Thank you, Father." And then Hassler writes, "It was emblematic of Simon's undivided mind and absolute faith that not for a split second did he doubt the power of this boy to remit his sin and save him from the fires of hell." I just think that is a terrific section in the novel. It captures the Catholicism of Simon perfectly. He has sinned. He knows he has sinned. He's sorry he has sinned. And even though the priest looks to him like an altar boy, his faith is, this is a priest. And when this priest gives me absolution, I walk out of that confessional clean, once again in deep relationship with God. I find I've read I think we've had about 5 or 6 shows on John Hassler's novels. Dear James, A Green Journey, North of Hope. Whenever he's humorous, I never find Hassler's humor mean, never. It's very gentle. I would describe it as very human. I remember being 26 years of age, and I live in a building with seminarians, and I feel like I'm their great grandfather. Okay, but there's something very, what's the word I want here? Something very encouraging about young people who are committed to Christ. They may perhaps be naive, they may perhaps not be wise yet, okay? But the commitment is there, and I find it, when I observe it, very, very, very inspiring. You know, when I started reading John Hassler, one of the first things I learned about him was that he was very popular in one section of the country, but for some reason, his reputation did not spread. This is one of the first things I learned about him. And then, after reading book after book, novel after novel by him, I was amazed at that, because he was really a first-class writer. I remember when I heard that he retired, I felt very badly, and I felt even worse when I heard that he had died. Did he ever achieve the kind of fame, if that's the right word, the kind of notoriety, if that's the right word? Was he as widely read as he should have been? Maybe not. But, you know, maybe there'll be a kind of a revival. I don't mean he wasn't read, but he didn't get the attention he deserved. He was first a really exceptional American Catholic novelist. And I feel that way about all the books. When I think of him, I think primarily of Simon's Night, I think of James, and Dear James and Green Journey. But one critic said, North of Hope is the greatest novel about a priest since Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory. What I would say is it's one of the greatest novels about a priest. The greatest one, I think, is Edwin O'Connor's The Edge of Sadness. And throughout this series, I've mentioned several times, I am amazed that laymen can enter into the consciousness and conscience of a priest so successfully. And I would say John Hassler is one of the most successful at that. So the novel, Simon and his wife get together again. They seem to be in love, and things are going to change dramatically for Simon, okay? So this week in his life is an extremely important week. And if you take the time to spend this week with Simon by reading this book, I can almost guarantee you, you will frequently smile, and when you finish the book, you'll just feel like a happier person.